Lebanon immediately. Our top threat assessment. This has been a terrible Sunday for Donald Trump, but frankly for the entire United States, as we're seeing the ramifications of Donald Trump's military strikes in Iran, where he and Netanyahu essentially went it alone. We're learning that the Fordow nuclear site was not even entirely destroyed. It appears to have been damaged, but again, not entirely destroyed, which was the central mission, which does not seem to have been a success. We're also now learning that, here's the response from Iran's ministers. America must receive a response for their aggression. This was on a call between Iran's top leaders and France. The United States is now ordering family and non-emergency government personnel to leave Lebanon immediately. Our top threat assessment within the United States government is that the United States now faces a heightened terrorism threat as a result. The Iranian foreign minister, Araghchi, is planning on visiting Moscow on Monday to meet with Vladimir Putin. This was reported by NBC First. He said he plans to travel to Moscow on Monday to meet with Putin to discuss how they can be jointly responding to the United States attack on the nuclear sites. China has issued a statement strongly condemning the United States attacks on Iran and bombing of nuclear facilities. The actions of the U.S. seriously violate the purposes and principles of the UN Charter and international law. That's what China put out in a statement. It was originally reported also that Iran's parliament has approved the closing of the Hormuz Strait. That's where all of the oil tankers have to pass through when they're traveling with all of the oil, all of it, from the Middle East. You shut down the Hormuz Strait, the Strait of Hormuz, and oil becomes essentially inaccessible and unaffordable in the United States. It was reported that the top security body in Iran is now making the final call after Parliament approved it. There was then a wrinkle on that it wasn't a formal approval by the Parliament, but they gave unanimous consent to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. But the decision now lies with the Supreme National Council in terms of how they intend to retaliate. Here is a statement, formal statement, issued by Iran's foreign minister, Saeed Araghchi. Says the following: last week we were in negotiations with the U.S. when Israel decided to blow up that diplomacy. This week we held talks with the E3 and EU when the U.S. decided to blow up that diplomacy. What conclusion would you draw? To Britain and the EU high rep, it is Iran which must, quote, return to the table. But how can Iran return to something it never left, let alone blew up? Here's what we're hearing from as well from Russia. Russia's former president and prime minister Medvedev put out the following statement. What did the Americans achieve with their night strike on 3 points in Iran? Critical infrastructure of the nuclear cycle in Iran appears to have suffered little or no damage. Enrichment of nuclear materials, and now we can say directly, and future production of nuclear weapons will continue. A number of countries are ready to directly supply Iran with their nuclear weapons. Israel is under attack. Explosions are thundering people in panic. The U.S. is now drawn into a new conflict with the prospect of ground operations. That's coming from Russia's former president and prime minister, Medvedev. Moments ago, you had United States Vice President J.D. Vance. He was on the morning shows, and he was asked, what's the difference between Donald Trump starting or being embroiled now in a war with Iran versus everything you, J.D. Vance, and Donald Trump had been saying before, that it's the stupidest thing in the world to do. It would take the dumbest person. Only the stupidest negotiators would ever get into a war in Iran. This is part of the neocon establishment. And here, J.D. Vance this morning says, I empathize with Americans who are tired of 25 years of foreign entanglements, But now we've got Donald Trump, who's a genius. And before we had stupid presidents. So now we have the greatest president, but then we had dumb presidents. So that's the difference. He actually used those words, basically. You can hear him for yourself. I paraphrased a little bit, but he basically said that. So let's play that clip.
And the second thing is, Kristen, I certainly empathize with Americans who are exhausted after 25 years of foreign entanglements in the Middle East. I understand the concern, but the difference is that back then we had dumb presidents, and now we have a president who actually knows how to accomplish America's national security objectives. So this is not going to be some long, drawn-out thing.
So he actually said that. That's fucking crazy. He said all our presidents were dumb before this. Now we got a smart one. All right.
We've got in, we've done the job of setting their nuclear program back. We're going to now work to permanently dismantle that nuclear program over the coming years, and that is what the president has set out to do. Simple.
I think it's also important that we know some of the other geopolitical ramifications and things that are taking place. It's why the research tools that I use, I want to focus on what's left media covering, what's right-wing media covering, what's center media covering, because even when stories like this are reported, the right-wing media never talks about it. A confidential brief to the ICC, International Criminal Courts, accuses Russia-linked Wagner of promoting atrocities in the West. How Russian media and right-wing media is interlinked with Russian media and right-wing media here in the United States as well. Here's a story that I think is being underreported, how a lot of the top people in the United States military worked for Palantir, the AI company that's gaining access to all of your personal data and compiling a list of everybody in the United States for Donald Trump. Meta and OpenAI, these corporations, remember all those people sitting kind of front row during the inauguration? A lot of the people who work there are now basically at top positions now in the military as well. Just the research tool that I use, so you know, because I get asked it all the time, I might as well tell you here. It's called Ground News. It's essential for me to see where the bias lies and try to correct for it. If you want to use the research tool that I use, go to ground.news/MTN or scan the QR code right there. We're going to give our viewers 40% off of Ground News top tier Vantage plan. Use the tools I use. Again, it's also subscriber funded. They don't rely on ads that could introduce bias, and subscribing supports our independent media network as well. Ground.news/MTN or scan the QR code and get that 40% off. As I was noting before, that's what J.D. Vance was saying in this morning. Here's what Pete Hegseth had to say this morning as well. He held a press conference earlier, and it was just basically praising Donald Trump for everything. Oh, this was the greatest. This was the greatest thing ever. Here's what Hegseth had to say.
I want to give congratulations to our commander-in-chief. It was an honor to watch him lead last night and throughout, and to our great American warriors on this successful operation. God bless our troops. God bless America, and we give glory to God for his providence and continue to ask for his protection.
Hegseth was then asked if there's a possibility that Iran, North Korea, and other forces such as China are now going to join forces with Iran and retaliate. Does Iran, North Korea, China all join forces? Hegseth's response is to blame former President Biden. Play this clip.
Iran and North Korea are cooperating on nuclear and missile development. Do you think there is a possibility that Iran, North Korea, and the other forces, such as China, will join forces to retaliate against the United States?
Well, unfortunately, because of the policies under the previous administration, we drove those countries together, and ultimately that creates a challenging environment. For this particular operation, the focus is on Iran and Iranian nuclear capabilities. That's our focus here, is to not just say that they can't have, but President Trump has said from over 20 years, frankly, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And ultimately, he decided this is the moment, given their stonewalling, when direct military action had to be taken to prevent that from happening.
Also, during the press conference this morning, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs was asked, do you believe that some nuclear ability remains? And he says that they don't have all that information yet. But as we now know, the Fordo facility does not seem to be fully destroyed, which is a big problem. And it seems that the United States government once again lied to us yesterday, the same way they've always, Trump has been lying to us. And when you had Tulsi Gabbard say 90 days ago that Iran was not capable of making a nuclear weapon. But anyway, here's what the reporter asks. Do you believe some nuclear ability in Iran remains? Here's what they say. Play this clip.
Me? Yeah. So is regime change off the table, Mr. Secretary? And to the chairman, you said the battle damage assessment is still ongoing, but do you believe that some nuclear capability in Iran remains?
This mission was not and has not been about regime change. The president authorized a precision operation to neutralize the threats to our national interests posed by the Iranian nuclear program and the collective self-defense of our troops and our ally Israel.
Thanks for your question. I think BDA is still pending, and it would be way too early for me to comment on what may or may not still be there. But thanks for the question.
So then you have J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, Secretary of State Rubio and Vice President Vance. They were going on TV, and they're pretending like we're not in a war with Iran right now. And again, just how weak and pathetic do they look? I mean, y'all took B-2 bombers and hit Iran's sites. You didn't destroy it. And now you want to pretend that we're not at war and that it's just a one and done and everything's okay, everybody. For real, this is what they were saying this morning. Here you have Kristen Welker asking J.D. Vance, is the United States now at war with Iran? And he says, no.
Unpopular opinion, but if you're going to shoot, don't miss.
No. Well, you may want to ask the Iranians what they think. Here, play this clip.
Question, Mr. Vice President, is the United States now at war with Iran?
Good question.
No, Kristen, we're not at war with Iran. We're at war with Iran's nuclear program. And let me just say, Kristen, that we're incredibly grateful and proud of the American Air Force pilots who did an incredible job last night.
And then Maria Bartiromo on Fox asks Rubio, and Rubio says no. Again, you may want to ask Iran what they think about that. Play this clip.
Now at war with Iran.
No, we're not. This is not a war against Iran. This is very simple. 67 days ago, the President of the United States sent the Iranians a letter, and it said, you're not going to have nuclear weapons. You're not going to have a militarized nuclear program. Let's negotiate. I want to do this diplomatically. I want to do this peacefully. They tried to play him along the way they've played every American president for the last 35 years. And, the president told them, if we don't get a deal, which is what he wanted, then I'll have to handle it differently. And that's what he did last night. He handled it differently. But that was an Iranian choice. We didn't make that choice. They did. By playing games with Donald Trump, they made a huge mistake. And President Trump acted last night. And I think the world today is safer and more stable than it was 24 hours ago. And a bunch of these countries putting out statements condemning us, privately, they all agree with us that this needed to be done. They got to do what they got to do for, their own public relations purposes. But the only people in the world that are unhappy about what happened in Iran last night is the regime in Iran.
So what has Donald Trump been doing? Well, before these strikes took place, he was at his golf club in Bedminster posing with thumbs up for the new members of Bedminster and the family members of Bedminster, of new members. Patriot Takes Account found this photo. There it is, a photo surfaced of Trump this weekend wearing his golf clothes at Bedminster after military personnel were being deployed to the Middle East. That's how he was spending his time there. Also, you have Donald Trump posting the following this morning: great unity in the Republican Party, perhaps unity like we've never seen before. Now let's get the great, big, beautiful bill done. Our country is great.
Dude, he's a
MAGA!
rapper.
Exclamation point. So he's like, all right, we're done. Well, I've moved on. I moved on to the next topic. Sure, I've lit the whole Middle East on fire, joined a war, but can we talk about the disastrous budget bill that's going to take health care away from 15 million Americans now and give trillions of dollars in tax cuts to billionaires and screw over working class and hardworking people and take away food stamps and housing and attack women's reproductive rights and take away infrastructure jobs? Yeah, I've moved on. I'm done talking about it. And by the way, now as the threat of domestic terrorism, of terrorism rather, in the United States has increased significantly. Of course, domestic terrorism, but terrorism from abroad inside the United States increases. This is the guy who's in charge of the counterterrorism at the Department of Homeland Security. And as Chris Murphy says, as our nation girds for possible Iranian terrorist attacks, this is the person Trump has put to head the counterterrorism. A 22-year-old who was working in landscaping, and he was a grocery clerk, but he was a big MAGA fan, so he got the job to be the 22-year-old kid, got the job to be the top of the head of counterterrorism with no prior
That's kind of crazy
experience.
Chat, is that out of context? Does anybody have any more facts on him? Surely he has some kind of background in something. There's no way.
Oh, also, J.D. Vance admitted when he was asked, when did Trump make the decision to strike? J.D. Vance said no one really knew when. No one had any clue. He just did it whenever. Play this clip.
Vice President, when did President Trump exactly make this decision, and did he coordinate with Israel?
The president, honestly, Kristen, I don't know that any of us knew exactly when the president made the decision, except for the president himself. But if you back up a little bit, we engaged in this diplomatic process. I think that he decided probably by mid-May that this process was not going anywhere. And so he decided to issue some private ultimatums to the Iranians. And then eventually, of course, we decided to destroy the Fordo nuclear facility and some of these other facilities ourselves.
Well, that's what we're learning this morning. We'll keep you posted, updated with more information. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers.
Yeah.
New Midas merch.
So that's kind of, there's some good key pieces of information there. The fact that nobody knew when they were going to launch except for Trump is kind of crazy to me. That's a little ridiculous. Nobody was in any sort of planning except for Trump.
Crew members
That's one red flag.
refueling, flying east, delivering
this might show us a little bit more about the aircraft.
14 total bombs under total stealth. Not a single shot fired, says Chairman of the Joint Chiefs Dan Kane, saying that no missiles were launched, no shots fired at our mission, no Iranian planes got airborne. They simply didn't see it. I want to bring back the special report anchor and our executive editor, Brett Baer. Brett, it's remarkable, these details, to learn that we literally got in and out without really being detected, hit all targets. It just strikes you at really the dominance. We heard from Secretary Hegseth, the unmatched capability of the American military, but boy, you really got to see it here, and likely sending a message to those that would do us harm.
Definitely. This is exactly what we were hoping for. Some details, as you mentioned, 7 B-2 bombers. This is the largest B-2 mission ever in the history of the U.S., dropping 14 of these massive ordnance penetrator bombs. Remember, those are 30,000 pounds each.
How did we do that without getting, seen? Nobody heard about this until it was done. I wonder how soon before Iran knew it was coming. What exactly is the window?
The GBU-57. That's 420,000 pounds of ordnance just in the B-2 bombers dropping on those 3 nuclear sites. Then you add some 30-plus Tomahawk missiles from U.S. submarines. You've got 75 precision-guided bombs falling on these nuclear sites. Essentially, the message was, we're not at war with Iran. We're at war with Iran's nuclear program, and there is time for Iran to get back to the table, and the president seeks peace. But as we talked about before we came to this press conference, and Rachel, you mentioned the deception and the effort to really tighten down on operational security. You heard a little bit about that. Not only decoy planes going different places, also ghost planes on radars, as well as the B-2s going to the west, while others flew from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. They are not saying exactly what the battle damage assessment is. Rightfully so. They're waiting for some more details on the ground. But that's really the big question. Where does Iran's nuclear program stand tonight or today? And this sounds like it is pretty devastated and decimated.
Brett, do you have any sense as to how they quote-unquote complete a BDA, a battle damage assessment? Because, you know, at this point, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's unlikely that the Iranians are going to welcome in inspectors to look at what's left.
Yeah.
Fair point.
The Israelis are on the ground. They're on the ground in significant numbers. We don't know exactly how, where, when, but they will provide some battle damage assessment from the ground, and then obviously our satellites.
It's the Iranian TikTokers. That's how we'll find out. They're gonna post TikToks and let us know. No, for real though, that's how we found out that we didn't completely destroy the one we were after. Big oops, America.
And what we have in the air can give us decent pictures. I think the question about the nuclear material is what the chairman of the Joint Chiefs was asked, and said he's going to need more time. I was struck by, this isn't about regime change. This is very precision. We talked about that going in. That was the message from the president last night. And it is one in which the Iranian leadership has to make a decision now. But if there is an attack on a U.S. facility, U.S. people, U.S. soldiers, U.S. bases, all bets are off.
Brad, they were asked, Pete Hegseth Secretary Hegseth was asked if the administration is in direct contact with Iran. Of course, he said yes, public and private measures, but something he said they know exactly what steps they need to take for peace. Didn't say what those steps are. What do you think those steps are?
Well, to give up enrichment has been one of the bars to start, and I think there's a long list that they've been talking about with the Europeans that has circulated around that the Iranians turned their back on in Geneva. They may turn their back the other way, go back to the table, considering what they just saw last night. But we'll see. The question really is the Iranian leadership and when we hear from them. So far, it's been a lot of bluster online, a lot of social media saying, the response is yet to come. It is going to be devastating for Israel and the U.S. Clearly, we'll see. And we mentioned the tentacles of terrorist cells that we really have to be careful of.
Yeah, Brett, I was really also struck by Pete Hegseth, in particular, Secretary Hegseth, talking about the desire for peace, the desire to make sure that this does not go beyond these strikes, that Donald Trump, the president, wants them at the negotiating.
See, this is what I was talking about yesterday. You can't launch a strike like this and then act like they're not going to strike back. Bro, they were striking us before we were attacking them. This is Iran. Like, bro, we're going to get hit. I'm saying it now. I don't know where. I don't know when. We're going to get hit.
Table to end this. That was very encouraging to somebody like me who's very concerned about this expanding into regime change. That felt good. On the other hand, there's a lot of tripwires here. We've got the bases that are there that are somewhat vulnerable, despite the threats from the U.S. government saying, don't touch our men. We also have the Houthis who have now torn up their ceasefire agreement, so there could be something that happens to our ships in the Red Sea. And then, of course, what I'm most concerned about is the fact that we've had 4 years of Joe Biden's open border and these sleeper cells. So talk to me about how President Trump, Homeland Security, Pete Hegseth, everybody involved is working to mitigate those very real threats, on the homeland included, to make sure this doesn't expand into a greater war. Because as you know, Brett, there's a lot of political implications here. By the way, not hearing much about the big, beautiful bill that was the #1 issue until Israel striked, but also the fact that, this is not a left-right issue. There are a lot of people in the MAGA base who voted for Donald Trump because they wanted peace and really hope that this leads to peace. So I know I'm throwing a lot out there, but talk to me about the politics around this, considering all of those things.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the threat of the terrorist reach of the Iranian regime, which has been doing it for decades through proxies, doing some very bad things. The president came to the conclusion that those tentacles, those terrorist reach elements, with a nuclear weapon or some nuclear, even a dirty bomb, is exponentially more of a threat to the U.S. and to our allies, and decided it was time to act. If you're worried about, the retaliation, imagine the retaliation with Iran with a nuclear bomb. Let's just put that aside. Yeah. There is a higher state of alert. The FBI, the Homeland Security, individual cities have been on higher states of alert since this all happened. over the past week or so, but now they'll be even more so. And the amount of strength, military strength we have in
the fuck is this guy's? What is he doing?
Suggests they're
We're
going to
strike
do a
here?
lot to try to protect those bases directly beyond what is normally done. As for the politics of this, you know, you're right. There is no left and right. There are Republicans who say it's not constitutional, who say that there should be, Congress should weigh in. However, you have Democrats who say this is the right move and it protects the homeland. I think there's going to be a lot of vocal voices. The question is next steps. And right now, the president's signaling that this is a very limited operation unless Iran acts to get us in. Israel's not going to convince the U.S. to do anything more than we're saying we're going to do. And I think that boots on the ground are completely off the table.
You know, Brett, we were just showing our viewers the photos that the White House put out from the Situation Room. And had I been in that Pentagon press briefing, I think my question would have been to Chairman Kaine, what was behind, what's the story behind his Texas, looked like Texas hook'em horns in a downward position? He seemed to be like literally physically showing us some sort of operational explaining it. And, you know, I think we pull that one up here and you'll see it in just a second. But what's interesting, Brett, is, you know, when you were talking about the proxies, Hezbollah hasn't fired a single shot. Hamas is on its back. The Houthis, very, very neutralized. You wonder if they're taking in some of this and listening, perhaps particularly, there's the shot. That one right there. He's talking about an operation which has once again shown American dominance globally at a time when there wasn't the deterrence of the last administration. Now, obviously, American deterrence appears to be back. You've got to think the proxies are paying very close attention to this.
Yeah, definitely. It looks to me like there's 2 bunker buster bombs coming out of 2 B-2s heading towards Fordo, but I'm just guessing there.
Yeah.
And by the way, as far as asking those questions in the briefing, it does bring me back to those days of being in that front row. And there are still some guys there that are there from the time that I was there. They're a little bit grayer, but they are very knowledgeable about the U.S. military as they ask those questions. I think, yeah, you have to watch not only the Iranian leadership, but what you hear from Hezbollah, which, by the way...
What's good, everybody that's just coming in? Welcome in. We're seeing all the urgent updates from today. Make sure you like the stream so we get more people in here. This shit is crazy.
So far has been very quiet since the pager walkie-talkie attack by Israel. Their leadership hasn't piped up at all. Hamas, there are really not a lot of leaders. They're in hiding. And the Houthis in Yemen have really taken it on the chin. Their leadership just taken out, the Israelis took out a meeting just last week of the Houthi leadership. So we'll see. They're not impotent. They have a response, Iran does. And that's what the U.S. has to watch very closely.
Brett, to build on Griff's question here, beyond the rebel groups, there was one line in there. Pete Hegseth said it exactly like this, showing the world that American deterrence is back. Griff alluded to that. I hear that, and I think beyond those rebel groups, to the question I asked you before we got into the press conference, to me that's sending a message to Russia, that's sending a message to North Korea, and just like firing missiles at Syria during dessert, this sends a message to Xi Jinping that we mean business, we are going to use our might to deter, and you better watch out and not do something stupid. Was that your takeaway?
100%. It reestablishes deterrence for the U.S., a president that is willing to pull the trigger despite political wins in his own party that perhaps are pushing him not to. He is willing to act on the intelligence he gets as well as his gut instinct in his mind to protect the United States. That is his definition of America first, and that sends a message not just to Iran, but to Russia and to China as they encircle Taiwan. It sends a message that the U.S. Is willing to act with the best and biggest military in the world. Do we want to get engaged around the world? No. Can we afford to be in 2 wars at the same time? No. But action and reaction to things that are happening, clearly that was a signal around the world.
Brett, do we have a clear understanding of whose intel this was based on? Is it Israeli intel, American intel? I know that a lot of Americans are, they trust Donald Trump, President Trump. They absolutely trust Pete Hegseth. But the intel apparatus that was in place before is still there. And this is the intel apparatus that, told us that there was Russia collusion and there was, weapons of mass destruction. And so how can we as Americans know that we're getting the best intel and that it's not biased?
I totally agree with you asking those questions. And ahead of the Iraq war, we asked a lot of questions, and there were 17 international intelligence agencies that told us that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. It wasn't the case. So there are real questions. At the end of that briefing, you heard that reference to Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard's testimony on Capitol Hill in March, in which she said they are moving forward with their nuclear as far as their material. However, the decision has not been made to move forward with a bomb. Between March and this action today, the president said he's convinced that he's seen intelligence that suggests that they were moving forward and getting closer to the point where he thought it was imminent. That is what the Israeli prime minister says. And now Tulsi Gabbard and others have linked up saying that it was moving forward to the point where it was a threat. You have to trust it until we see it, but that is what they are saying publicly and answering that question.
Well, just adding to Rachel's question, which is really such an important question about that, it does appear, unlike Iraq you referenced, that the intelligence this time is at least much clearer insofar as we had this May 31 report out of the IAEA, which is the UN's nuclear watchdog, for the first time breaking in 20 years, saying that Iran was in breach of nuclear non-proliferation treaty, enriching uranium up to 60%. They say this, Brett, they say, quote, the fact that...
Appreciate the sub on YouTube, Rob. By the way, guys, if you're new in here, what's been going on is we've already seen... pretty much nobody knew but Trump when they were launching the bombs, and we don't even know exactly what the damages are because we have no one that can report accurate intel. We do know that the main nuclear site that we shot at is not destroyed. So those are the biggest things so far.
Iran is the only non-nuclear weapon state in the world that is producing and accumulating uranium enriched to 60%, remains a matter of serious concern. That's coming at the end of May, and it does track, obviously, we would assume, with our intelligence.
Exactly. And so what IAEA essentially was saying was they are enriching past the point of the civilian program. They are enriching uranium. They have the material, but they have not made the decision to move forward with a bomb. So the Iranians are saying we're not going to make a bomb, yet we're stockpiling this weapons-grade material, and tomorrow they could turn and say we want to make a bomb. That was the imminent threat, and the IAEA was public on that. I think there was more intelligence that suggested other things were happening as far as moving components around Iran.
Well, Brett, thank you for joining us this morning. Thanks for hanging with us during the press briefing. Of course, everybody can see you on a special...
Here's my thing. Tell me if I'm wrong, right? Tell me if I'm wrong, but what are the chances that we don't know about all of their bomb sites, all of their nuclear sites? What are the chances that they still have stockpiled stuff? What are they going to do when somebody bombs them? They're going to bomb back. It doesn't matter. It might not be nukes. We might not be to that point yet. But we're getting hit. I know that for sure. We are getting hit.
Has bombed Iran with strikes President Trump claims have obliterated the country's nuclear enrichment facilities. 10 days after Israel launched its attacks on the country. Iran's foreign minister denied that the US strikes had caused a major blow and accused the US of breaking international law. Tehran is threatening retaliation, including closing a strategically important sea passage. The UN Security Council is holding an emergency meeting now. The Secretary General said dialogue must prevail to stop the Middle East falling into a cycle of retaliation. Well, the US struck 3 key uranium enrichment sites, one of them Fordow. These are the latest satellite images of that area. Difficult to assess the extent of the damage because the site is built deep under mountains. The US also bombed the nuclear sites of Natanz and Isfahan. This is Isfahan before the US strikes, and afterwards you can see the damage inflicted by the bombing. We're dedicating most of our programme to looking at how the US carried out the attack, to global reaction. Chris Mason will be here to tell us about a phone call that's just happened between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer. And crucially, we look at what may happen next. We also report from Israel after Iran launched another barrage of missiles today. Our BBC Persian colleagues have been hearing from people inside Iran.
A lot, John. A lot.
And we report from Turkey's border with Iran as people leave. First tonight, let's go to Sarah Smith in Washington. Sarah.
Donald Trump has just posted on social media that the damage to Iran's nuclear strikes is monumental. But at the same time, he is trying to stress that he doesn't believe his country is now at war with Iran. The Vice President, J.D. Vance, has said they are at war with Iran's nuclear program, but not with the country. And you've got officials emphasizing that they're not trying to...
What's the difference? Yeah, what's the difference? If we strike their facilities, that's their country. What do you think, they're going to take it a different way? Oh my God. I'm going to get some water, guys. Keep watching.
Topple the ruling regime in Tehran. And the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, saying it's time to get back to direct negotiations between the US and Iran, and that America would be ready to talk tomorrow. All of this is very clearly aimed at trying to stop this spiraling out of control and becoming a full-scale war between America and Iran.
Donald Trump, who promised to end foreign wars, went on live television to announce the attacks that may have just made him yet another wartime president.
Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
In the White House Situation Room with his top security officials, President Trump, making the final decision to attack, had to calculate what the consequences might be. Will airstrikes against Iran's nuclear sites result in attacks on US forces that could start a full-scale war? In these pictures from Isfahan, you can see and hear the airstrikes hitting one of the 3 nuclear sites attacked. Iran obviously knew this was a possibility, but may not have been expecting it so soon. President Trump had said he would take up to 2 weeks to decide whether to take military action. At the Pentagon, they want to say this operation is already over. Iran should not respond.
The operation President Trump planned was bold, and it was brilliant, showing the world that American deterrence is back. When this president speaks, the world should listen.
This Pentagon map shows warplanes taking off from Missouri in the American heartland and flying a 40-hour round trip to deliver their enormous munitions, 14 bunker buster bombs. What damage did they do? These satellite photographs show the underground nuclear site at Fordo before and then after the airstrikes. The B-2 bombers totally obliterated the site, claimed Donald Trump. The US military haven't actually made a final assessment, but say the facility has been severely damaged, not destroyed. Iran has said it will respond in self-defense. It hasn't said how.
It is an outrageous, grave, and unprecedented violation of the fundamental principles of the Charter of the United Nations and international law. The warmongering and lawless administration in Washington is solely and fully responsible for the dangerous consequences and far-reaching implications of its act of aggression.
World leaders have hastily convened crisis meetings in international capitals, aware that a growing conflict would affect them all. The UN Security Council is in emergency session, deeply concerned about military escalation in the Middle East.
The people of the region cannot endure another cycle of destruction. And yet, we now risk descending into a rat hole of retaliation after retaliation.
The US Congress was not consulted before the strikes. The president can take limited military actions without it. Only Congress can authorize going to war. Democrats claim Mr. Trump has acted unconstitutionally.
This is the U.S. jumping into a war of choice at Donald Trump's urging, without any compelling national security interest for the United States to act in this way, particularly without a debate and vote in Congress.
As these B-2 bombers are seen returning to their American base, their commanders don't know if they have undertaken a specific, limited mission or started a war. How will Iran retaliate for these airstrikes, and what will the US do then? This is a delicate and dangerous moment in the Middle East and around the world.
And let's talk to Sarah in Washington. What's your sense, Sarah, of whether the Trump administration thinks this operation is over?
Well, as far as they're concerned, yes, they want this to be an end to it, but of course it's not entirely up to them how Iran responds to this, and that's why there is such deep concern all the way around the world.
New poll up in the chat, guys. Will Iran attack us back? I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the chat, too. Do you guys think they're going to attack us back, or do you think they're just going to take this and let it go?
That this could easily get out of control with disastrous consequences that would actually go beyond the Middle East. You've got the leaders, for instance, of Britain, France and Germany coming together to urge Iran not to do anything that would further destabilize the region, because just think about it. Iran could, in retaliation, easily try to hit one of the many nearby US bases. If any Americans were to be killed, Donald Trump would feel compelled to respond to that, and you can see easily how this could then begin to escalate. It's important also to watch what's being said from Russia and from China, because those are allies of Iran. So far, both countries have condemned the airstrikes and said that they've breached international law. But they also are urging a return to diplomacy, not more fighting, and neither of them have given any indication so far that they would do anything to help Iran, which is important when we look at the way that this could possibly escalate around the world.
Sarah, thank you for now. Sarah Smith. Well, more than 100 US warplanes, including stealth bombers, were used to carry out the attacks, codenamed Operation Midnight Hammer. As we've heard, President Trump said in his TV address that Iran's nuclear facilities were obliterated. Our security analyst Gordon Carrera has been working with BBC Verify to assess whether that really is the case.
American B-2 stealth bombers returning home today after a strike that took Iran and the world by surprise, and having dropped weapons never used before in conflict. One group of B-2s had flown from their base in the US out west towards the Pacific. They were a decoy. 7 more flew east for 18 hours, refueling on the way, minimizing their communications to stay silent. Just before they reached Iran, a US submarine launched more than 24 missiles towards a nuclear site at Isfahan. Then the B-2s entered Iranian airspace, apparently without being spotted, before striking 2 more target areas. That included dropping 14 so-called massive ordnance penetrators, or bunker buster bombs.
Final battle damage will take some time, but initial battle damage assessments indicate that all 3 sites sustained extremely severe damage and destruction.
So, how successful were the US strikes? The key target was a place called Fordo. The B-2 bombers flew a route that took them high above the site where Iran enriches uranium, which could be used in nuclear bombs. It's buried in tunnels and deep under a mountain. Now, this is what Fordo looked like before the attack. And this image, confirmed by BBC Verify, is just hours after the strike. And you can see over here these holes. That looks like where the bombs impacted before burrowing down and then exploding. And the white you can see around it is probably concrete dust thrown up by the resulting explosion. Now, here is the Isfahan site before the bombing, and this is what it looks like now. So far, the International Atomic Energy Agency says it's seen no radiation leaking from the sites. And one possibility is that that's because the nuclear material might not have been there. These images were taken just a couple of days before the attack at Fordo, and they show a large number of trucks. It's possible they could have moved some of the uranium, as Iran has claimed. This was Natanz nuclear facility before the attack, and the question is whether after it, Iran retains the nuclear material, equipment and scientists, some of whom have been killed, to rebuild or even race for a nuclear bomb. If so,
then we may see even more strikes.
There is no doubt this attack is a violation of the United Nations Charter, and as well as one aggression, armed aggression to the Iranian national sovereignty and Iranian territorial integrity.
But international law will not stop this conflict escalating. Iran could hit back by firing missiles at US bases in neighbouring Iraq or in Bahrain or Qatar. It could even close the Strait of Hormuz. That's an economically vital route through which shipping and especially oil flows. As American B-2s landed back at base in Missouri, this mission may be over, but the war they are now part of may only have just begun. Gordon Carrera, BBC News.
Well, we can talk now to our economics editor, Faisal Islam, and our political editor, Chris Mason. And Faisal, picking up on what Gordon was saying there, I mean, that threat to potentially close the Straits of Hormuz, I mean, that would have a huge economic impact, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. We're on the pathway to potential serious economic consequences. The interesting thing is, up until this point, over the past couple of weeks, since Israel and Iran started trading missiles, we have had a pretty calm markets. Oil price up about 9%, which would have had an impact on price, but definitely not any sort of crisis. The oil markets open in about an hour and all focus on some words coming out of Tehran from the parliament, not from the government, saying that they will close the straits. Now, what does that actually mean? It depends. There are some reasons why you might think Tehran would have some restraint here. They export their oil to China, for example. We're already seeing the Americans saying to China, you need to talk to the Iranians, tell them not to do this. But you get 20% of the world's oil, 20% of the world's gas coming from Qatar since the Russia-Ukraine. In this case, this would be a weapon in Iran, the world economy.
In a moment, before I talk the Prime Minister
been very clear that it is important, President Trump tonight, but crucially, Jane, there wasn't that call beforehand, which could have been demanding a yes or no answer from the Prime Minister. In other words, whether the UK was willing to get involved in any way. So, for instance, granting permission to use the airbase at Diego Garcia in the...
little bit of stream stutter, it's all gone now.
Indian Ocean. And that would have been a real dilemma for the Prime Minister, because on the one hand, he's been talking about de-escalation. There's a suggestion that there were concerns raised privately about the legal basis for being involved. So saying yes would have been difficult, but then saying no would have been difficult when he's been assiduously building a relationship with President Trump. So how do we assess the UK's position tonight? It is willing the ends that America is pursuing, which is removing Iran's nuclear threat, but it is conspicuously not...
Nazar Ali, thanks for the sub on YouTube.
The means, in other words, America's attacks. Now, the Conservatives say that this is equivocation, that it is moral cowardice. President Trump was openly dismissive earlier in the weekend on European efforts at diplomacy. Those efforts, though, continue. As I say, the Prime Minister talking to the President by phone tonight. The Foreign Secretary has spoken to Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, during the attacks while they were taking place, and again today, as well as speaking to the Iranians, the Israelis, and others. The UK position is one that diplomacy is the long-term path to a long-term solution that ensures that Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons. The thing is, America wasn't willing to listen to Europe beforehand. The question now is whether it'll be willing to listen in the future. And in the next couple of days, President Trump, the Prime Minister, and plenty of others getting together at the NATO summit in the Netherlands to work out what to do next, amongst other things.
Chris, thanks very much. Chris Mason, Faisal Islam, thank you. Well, Iran's president has said that his country won't be bullied and that the US must receive a response to its aggression. So what are the options now for Iran's leaders? The BBC isn't currently allowed to broadcast from inside the country, but the BBC has a Persian service that reports on what's happening there. This report is from Siavash Ardalan of the BBC Persian service here in London.
In the center of the crowd, Iran's president, surrounded by hundreds of party faithful, venting their fury at the United States. What America did is truly unforgivable, says this woman. Iran is stronger than they perceive. But after last night's U.S. attacks, the regime here is seriously weakened. So what comes next? The Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei could swallow his pride and possibly save his regime and the country from further damage. Or he could fight on and risk everything. Domestic public opinion is now divided and confused.
The response must be firm and decisive. What's at stake here is the very identity of being Iranian.
In my opinion, Iran needs to engage in some reflection and contemplation.
As for the country's Revolutionary Guard, it responded by saying U.S. military bases in the region are vulnerable. But they know retaliation would invite further U.S. attacks. This is a state TV reporter who went to Fordow. I can't see much damage, he says. For now, it's America's word against Iran's. Weakened and humiliated, the Iranian regime will struggle to maintain its credibility and grip on power in the face of widespread discontent. Siavash Ardalan, BBC News.
Well, some people in Iran have chosen to cross to bordering countries. Our correspondent Orla Gearin reports now from Turkey's border with Iran at the Kapikoy border crossing, where she's been speaking to people as they arrive.
Turkey's border with Iran, flanked by mountains, and now a gateway to and from a country under attack. At the Kapikoy crossing this morning, we found movement in both directions. Some fleeing the bombing by Israel and America, others rushing back home to be with loved ones. Amir, a retired British Iranian, had just fled Tehran.
And what was your feeling when you got across the border here?
Feeling relieved, really, to be honest with you. I feel relieved, yes.
How dangerous was the situation in Tehran?
It is very dangerous. It is bad.
What's good to you too, Chris?
To the Israelis. So they can't do what they like. They're just coming in, they just bomb and go. And nothing there to stop them. Because they've got the sky, and that's it.
Very scary for you.
Very, very scary for everyone.
Amir says he got out with no help from the British Embassy.
But all of a sudden, embassies closed, staff are gone, phones cut off, and nobody answered. So I had to get my way out of the country. That's the way I'm here now.
You had to come on your own?
I had to, yes.
This is what he left behind. A country under fire, a regime that is holding on, and a war that may now escalate. But some, like 13-year-old Dariush, are hoping that a new Iran may emerge from the ashes. He crossed the border today with his younger brother and his mother. He told me he'll go home if change comes. God willing, Iran will be free. Soon all of us will live in freedom, he says, and the Islamic Republic will be gone. But among those going back into Iran today, there was more caution. We found no one willing to speak on camera. One man told us, "We're too afraid."
Well, in the last half an hour or so, we've seen a few more people coming out from Iran, bringing their suitcases. What we witnessed today was not a flood. By and large, it was people leaving who had the means to do so, who had a place to go to. One man told us he had friends and relatives who wanted to leave, but didn't have passports and couldn't get out. Now, on the critical question of what happens to the regime, we heard very differing opinions. One government employee who was going back in said he believed the regime would fall in the end, not now, but he feared that at that point there would be a takeover by the military. A younger man said to us, look, the leadership has hung on for decades. They can probably hang on now. And even among those who were hoping for change, wishing for change, believing it would come, there were also fears being expressed about how many people might be killed. And tonight, just across the border behind me inside Iran, no one has any idea what is coming next. and that holds true across the region.
Orla, thank you. Orla Guerin. As we've heard, Iran says it's keeping all options open in terms of retaliation, but its immediate response today was to launch more missile strikes on Israel, which began direct hostilities when it attacked Iran 10 days ago. Iranian missiles struck Haifa and Tel Aviv, injuring more than 80 people. Tonight, President Netanyahu has said Israel will keep going until it achieves its goals. Lucy Williamson reports from Tel Aviv.
Iran. All right, guys, I'll give you kind of an update on what I think a lot of people are asking. So a couple of things just don't register right with me. The big thing that keeps shocking me is they keep saying that we're not at war with Iran, but Iran is going to respond. I don't know any country that it would get attacked by missiles that have missiles that aren't going to send missiles back. So expecting no response is kind of ridiculous. It's not like they don't have allies either. I think that's like, was it inevitable? Did we have to strike? I mean, he said he was going to give it 2 weeks for diplomatic sources. Do I think they would have come to diplomatic conclusions? I don't know. How could we find out without launching? So I think, I don't know, Trump just kind of pushed the big red button. He's been waiting to do it in his presidency. And here we are. And now we're going to figure out what happens from that.
Iran once saw its ballistic missiles as a deterrent against Israeli attacks. But even the intense barrage that shook Israel this morning isn't shaking Israeli support for the war. A nearby care home, slowly evacuated, room by room. 10 days into this war, Israel's prime minister is determined to continue. Buildings may be turned to rubble, but there's no crack in public support.
We got out of bed and we went to the safe room, heard a tremendous boom. When we came back, we saw our apartment was not our apartment anymore.
We're okay. Everybody's okay. They want us destroyed, and we're not going to let it happen.
This conflict has exposed Iran's weaknesses and has become more dangerous with America's intervention overnight. For 10 days, Iran has been bombarding Israeli cities. Israel hasn't blinked. Tehran has already lost the protection of its proxies in the region, and its ballistic missiles are not the deterrent it had hoped. It now faces the critical decision of whether negotiations offer a better chance of protection than a nuclear weapon. Israel's prime minister said today that America's intervention was a turning point in the war.
History will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapons. His leadership today has created a pivot of history that can help lead the Middle East and beyond to a future of prosperity and peace.
But not all American intelligence agencies shared Israel's assessment that Iran had suddenly begun racing to build a nuclear weapon.
All I know is that from an Israeli perspective, our margin of error on Iran and its nuclear program is exactly zero. And all we have to do is make one mistake and we're dead. And if the Israeli government concluded that it was going to err on the side of survival, it was going to err on the side of survival.
This is Benjamin Netanyahu's wall. Israel's prime minister has wanted to strike Iran for decades, and he's already drawn in an American president who wanted to avoid it. Lucy Williamson, BBC News, Tel Aviv.
Well, we'll get the thoughts of Lise Doucet in just a moment, our chief international correspondent. But just to tell you what President Trump has been saying on Truth Social, his social media platform, just in the last few moments in relation to regime change. And that's why we're bringing this to you. It's not politically correct to use the term regime change, says the president, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? Let's talk to Lise. Lots to look ahead to in terms of what's happening next week, Lise, but I'm interested in your thoughts on that as well, just in the last few moments.
Yes, in the midst of this escalating military pressure, the R word, regime change, keeps coming up. At the briefing of the Pentagon early this morning, it was the first question asked by journalists who said, is this about regime change? Like, where is this going to go? And Peter Hegseth, the defense secretary, was adamant, one-line answer, this is not about regime change. And never mind that Prime Minister Netanyahu, the first day that he began Israel's military operations 10 days ago, he made it clear that he would like it to be about regime change. But I think putting aside Truth Social, the real question on everyone's mind tonight, Jane, is what is Iran going to do next? And it does seem clear that at some point, in some way, Iran will want to retaliate. But can it do it without ratcheting up the pressure? Because there is this danger in these febrile times of a dangerous miscalculation. Because the other thing that President Trump said today, he seemed to suggest these strikes were what we call them a one and done. In other words, in his words,
Impossible.
we've obliterated Iran's nuclear program, so this is over. But that's not likely to be the reality, and certainly not the view of Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel, his new partner in these strikes, who's likely to want to draw the U.S. in even more so that he can cement his success in having the United States play a key role. But this week, Jane, finally, is going to be a week where many are going to be at President Trump's ear. Most of all, at the NATO summit at The Hague, as Chris Mason mentioned, European leaders are going to say you've got to de-escalate, take the path to diplomacy. Arab and European allies are going to be also on the phone to Iran. Iran says it won't talk while the bombs are falling. While the bombs are falling, tension will only keep rising.
Lise, thanks so much, Lise Doucette.
Wow. Wow, guys. This is
Until very recently, the
very
American
dangerous.
position on the war between Israel and Iran appeared
This
to
is
be
very dangerous.
incredibly delicate. On its face, it almost seemed a bit like, imagine Donald Trump, except he's walking this fine line, a very fine line, trying to keep Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. But as he was walking that high wire, Israel and Iran were exchanging missile fire.
Dude, the footage
Israel
is
trying
insane.
to destroy Iran's
The
nuclear
footage from the bomb,
capability
like seeing
by
bombs.
force.
I don't know if you guys have ever, I hope you've never seen bombs go off in real life, but can you imagine that hitting your city? Can you imagine? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but we don't have very many bomb shelters in the area that I'm in. So if we were targeted, we're just fodder. I hate to say that, but it's terrifying.
Surprise strikes on nuclear sites and military leadership inside Iran. Smoke rising above Natanz, an Iranian nuclear facility.
Iran is trying to punish Israel for even trying.
Missiles streaked over Tel Aviv Friday, with some Iranian projectiles breaching Israel's air defenses.
And then there was Trump, insisting the U.S. is not involved, trying to stay above the fray without getting embroiled in a war that is constantly threatening to pull the U.S. in.
The president told me, we're not involved in it. It's possible that we could get involved, but we're not involved at this moment.
That was just a few days ago. Certainly not the case today.
There's a big difference between now and a week ago, right?
And you know what? This notion of the U.S. as a bystander, it wasn't even true then. It's the wrong way to look at it. The U.S. is involved much more directly than Trump lets on. I'll show you how and where that involvement might still go. From the very start, the U.S. has actively downplayed its role. The earliest messaging from the White House, Israel's initial attack was unilateral action, and we are not involved. But we know they knew the attack was coming, partly because Israel's prime minister said so after the attack on Fox News.
Look, I've been in constant contact with President Trump, and obviously we informed our American friends and President Trump, our great friend, ahead of time.
But also, 2 days before the attack, the U.S. was pulling its non-essential personnel out of the area, flying them back home, and trying to reveal as little as possible while they were at it.
Well, they are being moved out because it could be a dangerous place, and we'll see what happens.
Now, being vague is one thing, but just hours now before the attack, listen to what Trump told reporters about how if Israel were to attack Iran, that would be bad for ongoing nuclear talks.
I don't want them going in because I think that would blow it. Might help it, actually, but it also could blow it.
So again, just to be clear, that's Trump before the attack happens, saying he hopes an attack won't happen, knowing full well that it's about to. Or else Netanyahu is lying about keeping Trump fully informed, which I don't think is the case. What might explain this is reporting in Axios, citing two unnamed Israeli officials, that Trump was only pretending to oppose an Israeli attack in public, and that Israel had a clear U.S. green light. The goal, again, according to Axios reporting, to convince Iran that no attack was imminent and make sure Iranians on Israel's target list wouldn't move to new locations.
Yeah, it's totally plausible. It could be a deception that was concocted by Washington and Jerusalem together. They're allies. They have a common enemy here. So why would we assume that they didn't talk? I'm not surprised at all that the U.S. knew a lot more about this Israeli attack and probably was much more involved than he's publicly willing to admit to.
Way more involved.
You
gotta imagine. You have to imagine what we know on the surface versus what we're being told. Like how we thought for 24 hours that the attack was a success, and then we find out that we didn't blow it up.
Who gave to Bret Baier of Fox News, where Benjamin Netanyahu was questioned on this very point.
I mean, there were reports that President Trump kind of helped you achieve your strategic surprise by publicly urging you not to attack when he already knew you had decided to do it. So you were closely coordinating with the U.S. throughout this process.
Look, we're fully coordinated, but understand that America, under President Trump, will make the decisions that are best for America.
Note, he doesn't really answer the question at all, except to admit that the two countries were indeed fully coordinated. And I'll admit, I have no way of knowing exactly what the US president knew and when. But this also isn't where the reporting stops. US officials have also apparently told several media outlets that Trump vetoed an Israeli plan to assassinate Iran's supreme leader. Israel denies this. But again, if true, it suggests at least some level of coordination, joint decision-making, a willingness on Trump's part to shape what Israel does. And all of this is just the beginning. You don't have to look behind closed doors to see how the U.S. is already directly involved in the Israel-Iran conflict.
Netanyahu did confirm the U.S. military is helping Israel defend its airspace.
An American official tells CNN that the United States is playing an active role in helping Israel intercept Iranian missiles.
According to 3 U.S. officials, that the U.S. has been helping in shooting down these Iranian missiles.
U.S. planes and at least one destroyer were already reportedly in the eastern Mediterranean, just off Israel's coast, when Iran's counterattack arrived. And now more naval warships are understood to be on the way. I've gone through media reports citing American officials and then tried to corroborate those reports with ship tracking data. What it all adds up to is the U.S. actively moving its chess pieces around the board. And I'll stress, what I'm about to show you, these are approximate locations because it is really hard to know exactly where military assets are at any given moment. But American officials say the USS Thomas Hudner, that's a destroyer class capable of shooting down ballistic missiles, that it has redeployed from the Western Mediterranean to be closer to the action. Politico is reporting that the USS Nimitz is also rerouting. That's an aircraft carrier seen recently by ship spotters sailing west through the Singapore Strait. They could arrive in the Arabian Sea in a matter of days, joining the USS Carl Vinson carrier strike group. All of these assets together adding significantly to Israel's ability to defend itself.
On the defensive side, the U.S. is probably close to the max of what's actually able to be provided, whether it's systems like THAAD, which is an interceptor system, whether it's other ballistic missile interceptor capabilities. A lot of that is going to come from the ships and from what some of the movement that we're seeing from naval assets now.
You can remind the Iranians that there's a lot more military kind of hurt, if you will, that can come their way from the United States if this conflict continues and if somehow U.S. gets dragged into it.
So here's the million-dollar question. The assets the U.S. has or is moving to the region, they're capable of doing much more than simply posturing or even defending Israel from incoming missiles. So what red line or objective?
If you guys haven't said it in chat yet, the current topic is supposed to be, what do you guys think? Is Iran going to attack us back, or is this a one and done? I really want to know you guys' opinions. Do you think it's over? Do you think we hit their nuke facilities and they're not going to respond, or do you guys think that they're going to fire back? Let me know in the comments.
Might compel the U.S. to take a much more aggressive position. The line Donald Trump has drawn in the sand, he posted over the weekend on Truth Social. If we are attacked in any way, shape, or form by Iran, the full strength and might of the U.S. armed forces will come
thank you for
down
the sub
on
on
you at
YouTube.
levels never seen before. And then all that followed by a quick PS that everyone just wants peace, right? Right?
He's repeatedly said, let them fight it out. Israel and Iran engage in a tit for tat, that this, let them get it out of their system. He has also made it clear that the only time the United States will get involved is if U.S. personnel, bases, and so on are targeted by Iran.
That doesn't take much. An errant missile either from Iran or a rocket from an Iraqi Shia militant group, which have thus far been quite restrained, are likely to trigger at least some consideration by the Trump administration.
And though Iran knows attacking U.S. assets is perhaps the riskiest thing it could do right now because it could force Trump's hand, it has also very publicly maintained that it holds the U.S. responsible for what has happened thus far. Iranian state media posted this almost immediately after Israel's attack, citing the country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that the attack could not have been carried out without coordination with and approval of the United States. And as the main supporter of this regime, referring to Israel as the regime, that the U.S. would be held responsible for the dangerous consequences of Israel's adventurism. But Iran has other cards to play too. It controls the Strait of Hormuz, which is a critical bottleneck for the flow of oil. Millions of barrels of oil a day travel from oil-producing countries like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Qatar, out to global markets.
Iran has many ways in which it could escalate. One obvious option is closing the Straits of Hormuz, which would in effect cut off oil shipments to much of the world, since much of the oil travels through that strait. And that is something that Donald Trump does not want to see, because it would push the price of oil up and the price of gas up at the pump.
It is these threats, along with the prospect of Iran developing a nuclear bomb, that has led some U.S. lawmakers to argue now is the time for the U.S. to end the Iranian threat one way or another.
If diplomacy is not successful and we left with the option of force, I would urge President Trump to go all in to make sure that when this operation is over, there's nothing left standing in Iran regarding their nuclear program.
And I can show you one way all in might begin. One of Israel's earliest strike targets inside Iran was the Natanz nuclear facility. It's important because that's primarily where Iran enriches uranium, which is how you make a nuclear bomb, and Israel claims to have done serious damage to this facility. A base like Fordo, however, that's another
Fordo is the one we
uranium enrichment
didn't
site. It's
fully
literally
destroy.
built into a mountain, impenetrable, virtually invincible to any known munition Israel can drop from the sky.
Fordo has about 300 feet of concrete above it. It is so far buried, and the concrete is not even normal concrete, it's reinforced, special reinforced concrete, that it requires these massive, massive bombs.
And you know who has massive, massive bombs?
Guess who?
That's right, the U.S. In its arsenal, so-called bunker busters, these great big 30,000-pound bombs that are so big and heavy that they can only be carried by specialized large bombers like the B-2. So, for the more hawkish members of Trump's administration,
If that means providing bombs, provide bombs. If that means flying,
busting bombs?
whatever bombs, if it means flying with Israel, fly with Israel.
Israel would have preferred that the entirety of this war be a joint operation, and that all of the targets, both nuclear and otherwise, be jointly attacked by the U.S. But on Fordo, it's the one site that is really so hard, and it really would be a challenge for Israel to do it on its own, at least in a bombing campaign.
now, I won't try to predict Trump's next move.
President Trump issues a stark warning to Iran's supreme leader, posting on social media that we know where the Ayatollah is hiding, but that we're not going to take him out, at least not for now.
We now have complete and total control of the skies over Iran.
He posted most recently unconditional surrender.
But Israel's attack on Iran has presented both an opportunity and a problem. On the one hand, it's thought that this applies real pressure on Iran, and maybe that in a weakened state, it might be more likely to fold in any talks about its nuclear program. But on the other hand, if Iran feels it has no other option but to escalate, if it feels nuclear deterrence by arming itself with a bomb is the only way to survive, then this ongoing war may only be about to get even more complicated.
Yeah, guys. I don't know. This is not a good state for us to be in. I'll say that. And if you live in a major city or a city of importance to us that has nuclear capacity, all I can say is I might be a little worried.
Casually looking at a inscription on this mountain.
We're gonna finish this that we started yesterday. This is inside of Iran.
We're just arriving in Kermanshah right before the sunset. Pretty cool arrival into the city. Hello.
How are you? How are you? Iran.
We made it somewhere in a random neighborhood in Kermanshah, and we're about to get dinner with Amin's friends. You're a nice gentleman with your gifts.
Yes.
Hi. Salam, salam. How are you?
Server is my friend.
Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you.
سلامتین مرسی متشکرم خوب هستین قربانتون متشکرم.
This is very nice.
Yeah.
What does your shirt mean? Absolutely. I like this. It's very nice.
Yeah. The belt is called Chokharana.
When I went to Soleimania in Iraq, I saw that. Yeah. So what are we having for dinner tonight?
The secret.
Speak English. How old are you?
6.
Have you ever spoke English with a native English speaker?
No.
Oh, he really understands English, like really
Bro,
well.
kids are the same
Thank
everywhere.
you so much. What is this?
It's a traditional drink.
This is really colorful.
Whoa. Yo, hold on.
Tonight.
The secret.
Speak English. How old are you?
6.
Have you ever spoke English with a native English speaker?
No.
Oh, he really understands English, like really well. Thank you so much. What is this?
It's a traditional drink.
This is
There's fucking tadpoles in this, and you.
really colorful. It's like rose water tea. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Construction site.
You want to be a construction site.
Yeah, and I want to be a pilot. I'm going to be a police officer.
All of that? Construction and pilot and police officer?
Yep. And a fire truck. I want to be a fire truck.
Are you hungry?
Yep. Where you're going to sit?
I'm going to sit next to you. So where are you going to sit?
There.
Okay, so I'm going to sit there.
Hey, the safest spot at the
okay?
table?
Yep.
Next to the kid?
Rocky speaks English. He's my best pet.
So he's your best friend and your best pet.
Yeah.
Wow, nice room you have.
Yep. My favorite toy is a bouncy ball.
He took me in his room in the back and he's showing me his favorite toys. Is that fun?
Yep.
Oh, you have a lot of books in here.
No, but I'm not reading it. Here's my bathroom. We can use it to go bath.
Everybody watching this video from America and the world is going to love you.
You.
What do you want to say to them?
I want to say I'm 6 years old.
And cute.
Yep. This is a hat.
Yes, let's go. The food is ready. Come on.
Low key? Dude, that looks fire.
Which one is secret?
Is that Coca-Cola?
That's
Damn, everything there looks great with the Coca-Cola.
I mean, in Iran, there's not many recognizable brands.
Yeah.
But Coca-Cola is one of them.
Yeah.
This is, no McDonald's.
This is a fizzing drink.
Yes.
Wow, look at here.
Yes, man. It's very colorful. Thank you. Who cooked it? Which one of you cooked? You cooked all of it.
Yes.
Thank you. This is amazing. Yeah.
My favorite fruit is a strawberry.
Strawberry.
So this dish is a very, very typical dish from Kermanshah. We call it khoresh halal. These are almonds and red barberries that they are fried. Blackberry.
You got it wrong.
Yeah.
It's a blackberry. Okay, you start first. This is awesome.
With the current situation in Iran and Middle East, was it okay for you to travel to Iran?
I wasn't scared because I've been to many countries in the Middle East, including Iran, and so I know that the governments are different than the people. But to get the visa, it was tricky. It took many months, actually, to get the visa. And my parents are scared right now that I'm here, so there's a lot of fear about Iran. But for me, I just want to come and meet the people and share this with everyone.
Our parents are also afraid that we are living in Iran. It's just not your parents.
Everyone's scared of Iran. What does it mean to you to be Kurdish?
It's so difficult to live because
She feels that they are kind of isolated in a corner of the country. The other people in the country don't understand the language.
For example, in America, all people are speaking English, you know. But here in Iran, it's a lot of languages like Kurdish, Arabic, Persian.
How is the culture of Irani Kurdistan different from the rest of the country?
Our food or our traditional, for example, handshaking or lots of things that we are different. And so in religion, we are different.
Thank you for explaining. This is the best dish I've had in Iran. This one.
Rival for President.
Low-key fire, dude.
This is better. I'm serious. I'm serious, yeah.
I'm a meat eater.
Are you?
If it's a bad meat, I don't eat it. If it's a real meat, I will eat it.
Is this real or bad?
I eat a real meat, not a bad meat.
Is this real? It is. Good. What was it like here many decades ago? How is it different than today?
Since long time ago, it's been like this and it hasn't changed and it still is like that, is that they want to have some of their right. One of them, for example, is they would like their language, which is Kurdish, the mother language. At least it's been, that they teach it at the schools as well. Because
they don't teach it at schools?
No, because in Iran, the official language is Farsi.
What are some of the other struggles that you have? Because there's a border near here, but the people are Kurdish, does that affect any family dynamics, or how does that change the life because of the nearby border?
So they all have relatives in Iraqi Kurdistan. You know that it's not like that they cannot go there, but they have to have a visa. They have to apply for visa. Kurds of Iran and Iraq are very similar, so they could easily together. The same thing between the Kurds of Turkey and Syria. They believe that in Kurdish region in Iran, the unemployment rate is...
See, my question is, this was about 7 days before... No, this was like 3 or 4 days before the attack. So I wonder if it's as peaceful like that, like it is now. Or this might have been right after the attack, actually. My bad.
Higher than other parts of the country. It's totally high all around Iran.
But is it just media portrayed happiness? I don't think so. I think this is a real... He's real.
Are the largest ethnic group in the world without a nation.
And it's so sad, you just grow up and you feel that I'm Kurd, but you'd never have a country or you'd never have a rule, a government who supports you.
These conversations really strike a nerve, and I have empathy for the beautiful Kurdish people and their culture. After dinner, they want to share some traditional songs played by these handmade instruments.
Next year, come to our home.
I will. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I hope you have a good night.
He says that hopefully we will have a good relation. I mean, Iran and USA will have a good relation, and we will see you in USA soon.
Oh, thank you. That was amazing.
Bye. Okay, maybe it was right before the attacks. I hate to tell him.
Bye. That was one of the best experiences of my life. Wow.
After a wonderful sleep, I'm feeling refreshed for another day of exploring Irani Kurdistan. We are going to be spending all day driving northbound and stop in random towns and anything
Okay, this
that
is
catches
getting
our
close
eye.
to where the bombs
We've
dropped.
entered a beautiful village called Palangan. And what is this place known for?
The village is famous for its architecture. It's a step. It's interesting that the courtyard of a house is the roof of the house.
The next house.
The next house, exactly.
It's set alongside this mountain, kind of at the bottom, but it's the exact same color as the mountain.
Yeah.
So when you're driving in, it's almost hard to notice it.
It's camouflage. You
Camouflage,
don't see it.
like
Yeah.
a chameleon. We're just going to wander around and see if we can meet some people. I already know they're going to be friendly.
Of course, like other part of the country, they should be very friendly here. Let's go and see.
Let's go. All right, we're shopping for a scarf here because it's hot and it's gonna make my head cooler and look cooler. So how much is it?
Swag.
Say that they are guests, they are
Yeah,
they're
but
travelers.
He's pushing us away, not letting us pay. Oh, he took it.
That's what, yes.
Okay, finally we won the battle.
هذا عم دفرشي حساو كردم.
So cool, man. They're so friendly. Every time you make eye contact, they're like, come here, come with me, take this, come to my house. As you can see behind me, they still use donkeys to get around this village, just like ancient times. And when you're here and you see these old mud brick buildings and the way the society works, you really feel like you're in the 1700s. This man we've just seen on the donkey, I don't know what he's doing, but he's preparing some stuff to go back to his village, I'm guessing. Salam, salam.
Salam.
Ah, just stepped on my leg.
There is no indicator on the
Yeah,
donkey, you know?
exactly. What happens? Bikes out? Let's go. Not much help, unfortunately, in the moment, because I probably wouldn't be able to start it myself. All right, this is a losing battle. Our mission is to find a young person and see what it's like to live here. Hopefully they would speak English, but we don't know for sure. Some friendly old man up there just gave us the wave, so.
He invited us to
Yes.
go and visit them. Let's
Yes,
go and
we're
see.
going.
Salam alaikum. Ya Allah.
Salam,
Over
salam.
Elisha.
Okay, so now he's taking us somewhere, the old man. What's he saying?
So he's inviting us to his balcony. This
Okay.
is his house here, and he asked us to go to the balcony. Ya Allah.
Following the leader.
Rahba. Salamat bashna.
Salam, salam. Khubi, khubi.
قربانك
Look at the balcony views. Holy smokes.
You see how friendly people are. We don't know him. We just came and he said that, come with us. He took us to his house.
It does, Espas. It affects their population and ours. When they strike back, we're going to feel it. The government feels it less than the common people. Same with them. I mean, their cities are feeling it. By the way, guys, this is a nice time to say, please like that stream up. Let's get some more people in here. And if you love the content, hit that subscribe button. Thank you, baby.
You're really spoiled being from Iran because when you go to other countries like Switzerland, people are private people. They're not going to let you come in their house.
Exactly.
You're used to this.
Yes. Hash. Barabari, baftane, hash.
So I'm from America and I came here to learn about Kurdish people. Do you think that your grandparents and great-grandparents and all your ancestors came from this village?
Yes, 100% sure that for 4 or 5 centuries ago, they've been living here.
What are some of the struggles that Kurdish people face living in this region? Because obviously there's borders around here and
Years ago, there were some problems, at least at this region, but right now everything is good, safe and good.
Not everything.
At the beginning of 1980s, there were some kind of domestic wars here in this region, but fortunately, it says that now everything is safe and good.
Nice.
In 1980, 1 year after the Iranian Revolution, one of the deadliest conflicts in the Middle East reached Palangan. It was called the Iran-Iraq War. Saddam Hussein launched a surprise invasion of Iran, seeking to gain control of border territories and oil reserves. The war escalated into a brutal 8-year conflict, marked by trench warfare, chemical weapons, and a high number of deaths. Kurdish fighters on both sides were now caught in the middle of two fighting nations. For the people of Palangan, like this man, it seemed as though danger was closing in from every side. But their strength is something I truly admire.
It's really peaceful, he says here. You cannot believe how peaceful it is, this place, he says.
what is one thing that you want the whole world to know about Kurdish people and Kurdish culture?
Palangan is a beautiful place. He would like people from all around the world come here to Kurdistan of Iran and this village, and he likes them to see this beauty. Here people are really friendly, and here is totally safe. He's inviting you to come to Iran and Kurdistan of Iran and his village.
The irony in what you said is that the whole world, including my country, thinks it's so dangerous here, but in reality it's really safe.
As I know, everything is quite safe here. People are friendly, and they shouldn't be worried at all.
Merci. Merci.
Alhamdulillah.
Thank you.
Mamnunam. The gentleman just invited us to stay with him for lunch. He just, that invited us to his house, and now he's insisting us, that to wait and have lunch with them. Mamnunam. Mamnun.
I could easily stay at this guy's house all day long, but it's time to wander around the village and see who else I can meet. After a few humble interactions, I think I just hit the jackpot. So what happened is we met this really friendly old lady who was
She's
selling
wondering
stuff.
about the,
we were on our way to get
the
some
process
lunch,
of the world
and we
too.
asked her if she wants to join
to
us.
bed.
And she said, yes, I would love to, but instead of you eating at the restaurant, I'm going to set up a really nice carpet here so you can enjoy the meal here at my shop with me. So we have walked all the way to the other side of town to get some fish, which is what they eat here, believe it or not, and we're going to bring it back to her. She's such a sweetheart that I know this is going to be an incredible moment and conversation, and you guys are coming with me. We found the only restaurant in town where this guy is cooking some fresh water fish, grilling it, spicing it. It smells incredible. All right, we have a lot of fish, and here she is.
Salam.
Hello, salam, salam.
Ya Allah.
Salam. She's like more active than my friends, and she's like 85. That's kosher.
How is it? Did you try?
Yeah, it's amazing. Oh my God, it's so soft. It just melts in your mouth. So good.
This is pomegranate sauce. They grow pomegranate here.
Bro,
You're
fire.
Very, very, very kind. Thank you
Every piece of food that we've seen is absolutely fire.
so much.
خیلی مهربان.
What is it like living here in Palangan village?
خوبه. Good. Thanks God, good.
How old are you?
Except for all the flies. I'm just now seeing all the flies crawling around. The eating environment, not fire. But the soul fire.
80 years old. Mashallah.
Mashallah, mashallah. What's the key to living a happy, healthy life?
Food, nice weather, that here. They have farming, so everything is good. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Elisha. Shukr wa khuda.
Tell me about Kurdish culture and Kurdish people. How are they different from other people in Iran?
All people are good. This is how the Kurds say. Everybody is good.
Can you remember any crazy stories that happened here, good or bad? Just something that you want to share.
Yeah, she just says that before it was different lifestyle here. They just use animals such as mules and donkeys to go around. Now everything is with car.
Which one do you prefer, the old one or the new one?
She says that before it was much more difficult, but now it's much easier to live.
She has clients coming right now. She has to grind.
از داخل بیارم میرم نه بشین
Where's she going?
She's going to bring glasses. I wanted to go, she didn't let me in. She's very fast actually.
Every 2 minutes she's getting up and going down.
This is why she's healthy. 80 years old and healthy.
Do you hope that someday Kurdistan will have its own country?
It will be very good if they can live all together. Inshallah.
If you could say one message to everybody in the world, what would you tell them?
She wishes them all the best.
She's okay. Lovely experience, truly.
Yeah.
Isn't she amazing?
Amazing. She's amazing.
Das خوش.
Das خوش.
Das خوش.
Das خوش.
سر خوش.
سر خوش.
Das خوش.
Spas.
Spazakam. چشم آمد.
Oh, she means literally, you step on my eye. You are most welcome to our place.
This village is spectacular. Everyone's so friendly, and you can really feel the Kurdish hospitality. They're shaking your hands, bringing you inside their shops, inviting you into their homes, and just genuine great people that just have good hearts. What's amazing to me is that even though this settlement dates back to the 3rd century, there's still people living in these houses. It's not made for tourists. It's just made for the locals, and you can see there's people everywhere.
You know, I travel so fast and I'm always bouncing around from place to place, but it's nice to just kind of sit down and relax here. It's a really slow-paced life. Just kind of meet people as they walk by and just admire the beauty of this ancient village.
Our journey to cover more of Irani Kurdistan continues, and after another 5 hours of driving, we stumble across a bustling town. We just arrived in the Kurdish town called Sanandaj, which is a beautiful little town somewhere in northwestern Iran. There's something about being in a town that no one's heard of before, and including myself before this trip. I never heard of Sanandaj, but it's cool, it's hip. You even have women not wearing scarves here. It's like this cross between traditional but also some new things, which is pretty sweet. What I've gathered from being in Iran is that it might be the most affordable country in the world, at least as a traveler. So in this city, I want to do a budget.
Yeah, guys, I saw he filled up a whole gas tank for $1.50. $1.50. Can you imagine our gas prices being like that? Sheesh.
Challenge to see how many things I can buy for $100.
50 million riyals is $100. So this is what we get for 100 US. There's two different currency systems in Iran. There's riyals, which is the official currency. If you Google it, riyals. But there's tuman. What's the difference?
Tuman officially doesn't exist. But since olden time, people, to make it easier to say that, they always remove one of zeros. So for example, this is 500,000 riyals, which is equal to 50,000 tumans.
But in conversation, do you say 50 or 50,000?
We just, right now, we just say 50. 50 tumans.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so now what can we buy with all this? Let's go to the casino.
Let's go.
We have our bag full of cash here, and we are in the bazaar. Gonna try to meet some people and see how far this $100 can take me. Probably a lot of stuff, I am guessing. Everywhere you see the freshest fruits and vegetables, everywhere.
So this is a butcher shop. We have testicles.
Your favorite, right?
Yeah, of course. After you.
If you ever wanted to...
Chad, you eating that? I'm not touching that shit. I don't care how you cook it. I'm not touching that shit.
Try brain and
Fuck
testicles. Sanandaj is your place. You know, when the sun starts to go down, everything becomes lively.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Too hot in the
So,
afternoon.
exactly. Siesta.
Yes.
Everybody relax.
Yes.
Even sometimes they go home.
Right.
And then they come back in the afternoon, and you know that you can see how alive the city is right now. Jana. John? Yeah, turistan خارجی
America.
They are asking how you come from United States to Iran. How? Why? And he was welcome.
I took a plane and it...
This is how expensive are the goods in US.
I would say it's 5 to 7 times more expensive in the US than here. For example, this would be like 7 US for one.
For
No,
one.
for one.
7 US dollar. میگه یه دونه بادمجون $7 اون. 1 kg you buy here for 5 cents.
Cents?
5 cents. Yeah.
It's like 1/1000th cheaper than the US.
They're making jokes. They say that we can just export eggplant to US and sell it there. They want to know how people in US, you know, that like Trump.
A lot of people like him, a lot of people hate him. What do you think? What do you think?
He likes him.
Really?
Yeah. Like, if you ask someone in US that they know, for example, the name of the leader in Iran, do you think that they know?
Absolutely not. I think nobody knows. Yeah.
But here everybody if you
knows
ask them, probably they know the previous presidents of the United States.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yes.
Isn't that kind of crazy? Like, that's true. Can anyone right now in my chat, without Googling it, tell me who the leader of Iran is? Can anybody in the next 5 seconds, without Googling it, tell me who the leader of Iran is in my chat? Anybody?
That's what the name is kalane bread, which is stuffed with some vegetables.
Some fire bread.
The lady was
in Afghanistan, they call this bolani.
Golani.
It's the same thing.
Really?
Bolani, yes. This is really a cool scene. You see all these men making this incredible flatbread with some onions inside, scallions. We're gonna give it a try. America.
Our United States.
Every time we tell people we're American, they just say Trump.
He says that if Trump comes to the office, our money value drops down much more. This is that the price of dollar is around 55,000 right now. It will be 100,000 soon.
You know, at least people here joke about it, because that's really messed up for the economy.
Yeah.
But they have a sense of humor, which is actually really nice.
Merci.
Okay, there we go. Let's try it. How much is it?
200.
200. Can I give a tip?
Yeah, leave 3.
Take 3. Take 3.
All right.
Take it. Yes. All right, let's try it.
He says that you have to drink it with yogurt.
That looks so good, dude. I would pay good money for that right now. That looks delicious.
It's
Show
really
me how to
creamy
make it. I
and
need a
buttery,
DIY.
almost like a quesadilla with no cheese, but just the onions. Oh my God, for real. In Iran, I've never tried something like this.
He says that it's considered to be one of the oldest fast foods in the world.
Amazing, man. Really amazing. They give you this really salty milk drink. They drink it across the Middle East. Really, really sour and salty, but it's good mixed with the food. Tell me about Kurdish people. Tell me about your culture.
Friendly people, hospitable people. They are among one of the most ancient nations in this country from the mid-8th century BCE.
I could eat like 4 of these, but I'm gonna save myself for more food later. Do you want another bite?
Yes.
Cue the music. Spas. Okay, we still have about 3 pounds worth of money to get rid of, so onwards.
Seems that you are the superstar of the town right now. Everybody is looking at you, pointing at you, and they're talking about you.
You're also the superstar because we're together, so.
Yes.
Crossing the street in Iran is crazy. The drivers do not pay attention, and they won't stop for you unless you really do this. It's crazy, you can literally find anything here from clothes to electronics to, look at this one, it's like an antique shop. Like if we were standing right here 50 years ago, the guy would look like this and this would look the same.
Exactly.
Right? Exactly the same. Okay, so we still have a lot of cash. We gotta spend some money, man. What do you think we should get? What are these old men doing here?
I think that they are selling, prayer beads.
Salam. Khubi.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
خوبی الحمدلله.
Alhamdulillah.
کجایی هستی؟
America. America.
آمریکا. فارسی خوب بلدی؟
Farsi very well.
Yes, Khubi. Khubi.
خلیفه خلیفه
Khalifi.
خلیفه
Khalifi.
خود خلیفه این خلیفه.
What did he say?
They were teasing his اینا چیه تسبیح خاص سنگه؟
Okay, let's get one. How much?
Yeah, this is 15 million riyal.
Just give me a second while I count the reals, please. So, 9 million?
Yeah, 90 of that.
90.
Counts 90.
Here's 50. That's 50. 1, 2. I lost count. We look stressed now. The money comes out.
Here is safe.
Yeah.
Anywhere else in the world you cannot do that.
Very good point. Anywhere else in the world, you can't just take out money. Dude, this is a crazy scene, man. This is crazy. I just pulled out 90 banknotes to pay him. So, 10 million. 9 million. 9 million.
We got the discount. We got the discount, 1 million. زنده باشید. خداحافظ.
Mamnun Khudafaz. I just met these lovely old men here selling prayer beads that are made out of amber. And I bought one for 9 million riyals. So 90 of these 100,000 banknotes. That's close. Spas. There you go. That's yours. No, it's yours. Let me take it. The bag is getting lighter and lighter. We got a few more things to get.
And chat, he's only spent 20 bucks today. 20 US dollars is what he spent today. He started with a $100 budget. Dude, he's still got $83 left. $17 is what he spent. The ratio just doesn't add up.
One of my favorite things about Iran are the old bazaars, and you can feel how old they are just by looking at the roof. This was always a place where people buy stuff.
Yes.
Always. For 400 years.
The bazaars were always like the economical core of the cities, yeah? Different merchants from other cities, even other countries, came to these places doing business, so it was just like the beating heart of the city.
I have about 75 US left in the bag, and I'm thinking to get a nice carpet because in Iran, they make a lot of incredible carpets that they export all over the world. So we're gonna look inside this carpet shop. Or that's cool too, like something to hang in my house.
Okay, fine, that is more than your budget. This is from here, because of that, I think this is clean, yeah? This is, it, I mean, matches
Really?
your budget.
Really?
Any of them you can do the same price, but just choose the color and pattern. The first one I like it more.
Is it locally made?
They're all from here.
No
This is the best part of this whole video. So this is for like decoration or what?
You can put it on the floor, actually very strong material, so it's made out of wool, or hang it, up to you. In Iran, in olden times, they're mostly used as like a curtain, yeah? They hang it at the entrances of the doors, but you can put it on the floor. We usually use it on the floor now.
We are surrounded by amazing Persian carpets and rugs. Why are carpets so famous in Iran?
We are one of the biggest producer of carpets, and historically Iranians are one of the first carpet weavers in the world. Persian carpets are all hand woven, different, that actually pattern from different part of the country.
This is like regional, like this kind of style.
Yes, as I told you, it's a clean, and it comes from this area. We call it Sene pattern. Sene, you remember, is the way that the Kurdish pronounce Sanandaj.
Sanandaj.
Yeah, Sene. So this is called Sene clean.
I'm gonna take this all the way to America.
میگه میخوام یادگاری اینو ببرمش آمریکا.
All right, now it's time to pay for the carpet. I'm really slow, sorry.
Nope.
This is 5 million. There you go. And we got a lot more to go. 5 more million. You can see he's way faster at counting the money than I am. The inflation in Iran is so high that the money just keeps getting devalued. So we have like tens of millions to buy a carpet.
Yeah.
If I weighed it, she's right. Just weigh it and just know how much each bill weighs. I think for about 10 minutes. Still going.
See you tomorrow.
Is that everything?
Yeah, he gave it US discount.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
10 minutes later, we got all the money counted, and I
Very
got
good,
my
very
carpet.
good, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mamnoon.
Mamnoon.
Mamnoon. Spas.
قربون.
Here we are. Even though we're here in Kurdistan, there are reminders that this is indeed Iran, with flags everywhere. Lots of flags. You know what's interesting? In Iraqi Kurdistan, they don't have Iraqi flags. They only have Kurdish flags.
Kurdish flag, yeah.
But here, there's only Iranian flags.
Yeah, because I think there they have some kind of independency.
Right.
But here they are under control of Iranian government.
It's just an observation.
Yeah.
What Amin says is true. In Iraq, Kurdistan is semi-independent, with its own government, flag, laws, and military. But here in Iran, the Kurds don't have that kind of power. As I walk around the bazaar, there are constant reminders that I'm still in Iran.
I love how this is just a random mosque and it's just absolutely stunning with the blue tiles. That is Iran for you, my friends. Assalamu alaikum. The guy's opening up the mosque just for us to go check it out inside. Let's go. So big. The coolest thing about this mosque is all the carpets and rugs on the floor.
They are all from Kurdistan region, and I'm sure they are donated to the mosque because that is a nice gesture, a good omen. They just donate this carpet to the mosque as a holy place. In 1 hour, I think, it will be the sunset prayer time, and people come to say prayer here.
These are all holy books, the Quran. There's a bookshelf of them here. Wow. Oh, fantastic. The mosque is so peaceful, and I appreciate this quiet moment to reflect on my trip so far. But now we're back on the road, driving along the Iran-Iraq border, a place that was once scarred by war. What is this?
The police station.
That I shouldn't be filming?
These mountains used to hide